it is, right? And we need to start seeing what we can do about, you know but what we can do about fixing the situation with family over time, right? Because over time we have sort of tended to, not only forget what a family unit is, but also sort of, neglect the family unit, not just forget about it. We do not make an effort to, sort of make sure that we're maintaining our family. We sort of get caught up in our own lives. We've either become too independent or too dependent, which again, with both ways, it is not healthy for us, right? If you take the Western world, we see that, we have sort of started to forget about the family unit. We've started to become very independent to the point where we do not care about family anymore, right? We've come to the point where, we're sort of caught up in our own lives. At 18, after we leave, after we move out, we're done with family, right? And this is not just to do with, like, our families that we come from, not just our parents and siblings, right? We also tend to not like the idea of having a family when we grow older. We do not want to marry, we do not want to have kids, right? And that is completely fine, because it is your choice ultimately to decide what you want for yourself. But why exactly are we hating the concept of family? Why are we going away from the concept of family, right? That is number one. But number two, we also start need to start thinking about the Eastern world, in which we have people get so attached to the family. It's almost as if they're living with their parents even when they're 29, 30, right? And that's completely fine. You want to live with your parents, go for it. We're not going to say anything about that. But that necessarily makes you really dependent on your family, and you forget to sort of take care of yourself on your own. You sort of tend to, you know misunderstand what your role as an individual is as well, right? So it is really important for us to not be too independent, but also not too dependent on anyone as well. So we will be talking about this. We will be talking about family and what could be done to sort of play our role on making sure that we're not neglecting our family, and we're actively taking part in sort of maintaining our family, but at the same time we're also doing whatever we can to make sure that we're not so dependent on them. We're not putting pressure on anyone to take care of us, and we're doing that for ourselves, right? So let's go right in. Let's take the modern lifestyle that we have sort of accustomed ourselves to, right? When we turn 18, we move out. We kind of tend to, become independent, and now we don't sort of care about anyone, right? And we call our mother, like, first few days we call our parents like every day, and we're like, we miss you, we want you, we are dependent on you, because we do not know how to take care of ourselves, and our parents have done it constantly for us. So the first few weeks of moving out is simply focusing on, trying to adjust to that alone lifestyle and getting your family's help for that, right? But again, when that is sorted, we tend to sort of forget our family, get detached from our family. And now you're calling your parents once a week. Okay, then you move on. Then you call them only for Christmas. And you've come to that point where you talk to your parents once a year. And that really is saddening, because you need to take care and love the family that has taken care of you for 18 years, right? And even if it's simply just 18 years, we have to make sure that we're being grateful towards them, right? And we are making an effort to maintain family, and we're not just turning to them when we need something. Why do we turn to our parents only when we need something? Why do we turn to our mothers and fathers when we forget how to use a gas cooker, when we forget how to, fix a car, when petrol is leaking out, right? These are the kind of situations in which we call our parents. We call them only when we have the need to call them, and we tend to forget to call them, simply just to appreciate them, simply because you want to talk to them and because you miss them, right? So it is really important for us to make sure that we are taking the time off of our day. And I'm not saying that you need to call your parents up every day, right? We've spoken about love languages on the social roundup multiple times before. We've spoken about how love languages can decide what exactly an individual is looking for to feel loved in this world, right? And if your parents are, their love language is physical touch, it's as simple as going in every day or like once a week to give them a hug. Give them a hug, give them a kiss on their forehead, and be like, I love you and I appreciate you. But if your parents' love language is words of affirmation, it's as simple as dropping a text saying, hey, I love you and I appreciate you. If their love language is gift giving, sending them something, once a week, just make sure something is dropped at their place, right? Be like, well, I went to wherever you went shopping and be like, well, I saw this at the mall and I remembered you. It's as simple as that, right? So do make sure that you, from your part as a child, you're making your effort, you're making the time to look out for your childhood home, right? Your family that has been there for you for 18 years. Now, there's also the role you play as an adult. Now, if you are the parent and your child has forgotten you, or you have forgotten your child, because as parents also tend to sort of neglect their children. Right now, I don't speak for any parents because I'm not a parent, right? But at the same time, if you are a parent, you need to understand that sometimes you might tend to neglect your child, right? You might completely let go of them. It almost feels like a burden, right? After 18 years, it's almost as if you're getting rid of a burden. And that shouldn't be the case as parents, because you are family and you shouldn't be feeling like someone is a burden to you, nor should you feel like a burden to someone else. It should feel like a family, and family is different. It's full of love and appreciation. As much as you are there for each other, you're also going to have the good times together, right? So we need to start reconceptualizing what family is in society, right? And that is exactly what we want to be harping on, what we want to be highlighting on today, because we feel like there is a role that you need to play, be it the child, be it the sibling, be it the parent. There is something that you need to play as your role so that the family unit can keep running and smoothly and appreciated and feel loved there, right? Because we are constantly looking for love out in this world because we haven't received that love in that household. We haven't received that attention in a household. And because of this, we tend to come out as unhealthy individuals, unhealthy people who are going into society having unrealistic expectations of society. But also, sometimes, while you might not have unrealistic expectations, you might also be someone who is harming society, who is putting negative energy into society. You might become toxic. You might be someone with daddy issues. You might be someone with mommy issues, right? And that is necessarily not good as well, right? So we are going to be talking about it today, and we will see what could be done. And we'd love to have you engage with us and tell us what your experiences, what your thoughts are. Do you think the family unit is neglected in the current society? And if it is not neglected, tell us how you feel like it is not neglected. If you feel like it is neglected, then well, tell us how you feel it is neglected, right? So we are going to be having this conversation with you within the next hour. So stay tuned with us while we go for a small break. This is Sala on the Social Roundup.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh, so that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, got me thinking. You want to stand out. Why do you want to stand out though so much, especially with these kind of shirts when you're riding? There must be a purpose behind it, right?
Well, when you say a purpose, Nick, what I do, I wear the shirts, mainly one because they're nice and bright, so they make me visible, especially if I'm riding on the road.
Okay. Yeah, that's very important, right? Because you want cars, yeah.
Very important. And also, like, people see me in like cafes, and perhaps I shouldn't be saying this on here, I suppose, but in the bar afterwards.
All right.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh, so that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, you look like a guy who would do.
You know me too well. You know me too well, Nick.
The valuations that you place on an asset are always behind you. It's always in hindsight. It's never in front of you. And that's one of the challenges, right? Because you're always valuing what happened yesterday, and what you need is what's going to happen tomorrow. What am I saving or investing for? Why am I doing it? When will I need the money? And how much money do I need? Yeah. So that's quite important, because when you're looking at your net worth, you've got to start with saying, well, what do I want my net worth to be? So that there's a goal, and then work backwards. How do I get there? And if I can start with £50 or $50 a week, if I save that every week, and and you can go online and use calculators online. I don't have to teach you the maths behind it, but you can say, okay, and if I get a 3% return and I put this away for how long will it take to reach my goal? And that's called just this basic cash flow projection calculations. And it's what we use in financial planning all the time. What we say to clients is we say, okay, what is your goal? What is your objective? Where do you want to go to? And we discuss that in a lot of detail and over most of the meeting. And then the rest of it is saying, okay, in your exact circumstances, with your risk profile, with how you feel about investments and pensions and taxes and where you are and who you work with and your education level or your lack of education or how involved you want to be. There's a lot of variables that we take into account, and then we say, okay, here's a plan. You start like this, that's great. And then we review it all the time. And we say, okay, we need to increase it, we're on track, we're not, this is what is happening. Because remember, when you're dealing with assets, the valuations that you place on an asset are always behind you. It's always in hindsight. It's never in front of you. And that's one of the challenges, right? Because you're always valuing what happened yesterday. And what you need is what's going to happen tomorrow. So that's a struggle. Yeah. So there are strategies everywhere from £50 a week up to £100 million pounds. And they're different. Right? They range differently from everyone, but and from country to country, to be fair. Different countries have different tax laws, so with different vehicles. But from your point of view, at the sort of normal end, I'm not going to call it the low end because I'm in that boat as well. It's as tax efficient as you can get it. That's where you start. You use all the tax efficiencies, and then you step up into different things.
Back on the social roundup with Sala, and we've been talking about the family unit that seems to be neglected a lot these days, right? We are so caught up in our own lives, we tend to forget about taking care of our family. Now, did you know that child neglection is child abuse? That is honestly, like, it's something that I learned recently, right? And to be honest, I'm really shocked about it, but at the same time, I kind of understand why neglect is kind of considered child abuse, right? Now, we need to understand that neglecting our children could lead to multiple consequences, and it could really affect the child, because now childhood is where an adult, where a human rather, where an individual is molded into the person that they're going to become when they're an adult, right? And now when they do become an adult, they're going to constantly, make decisions based on their experiences during childhood. So it really matters what we give the kids at that time, right? So we need to make sure that we're giving children the necessary attention that they deserve and necessary support that they deserve. And not doing so could actually lead to child abuse, right? Now let's take an example of, child neglecting, right? Now, as busy parents, as parents that, in society where we work, we have both working parents, and where we decide to sort of, let children grow on their own terms, right? Grow up on their own terms. And we give them the basics, where we basically provide them with food, shelter, education. But is that enough for children to grow, right? Is that enough for children to become the adults that they're supposed to become in the future, right? Sadly, thousands of kids in this world get neglected. Now, as much as, on an international context, if we see poverty and all do affect, children and how children are raised, and, the guidance and attention that children are given from their parents, We also need to understand that in UK we have children who are neglected emotionally as well, right? As much as it is important for us to give children and accommodate their physical needs like education, food, and shelter, it is also important to be there emotionally for the kids, right? Just letting the children grow up with no support, emotional support, and having them grow up on their own terms can be so unhealthy for the kids, right? Because again, children learn from what they are exposed to. And if you are showing them and you are showing them that they do not deserve your attention, that can really affect the child. The child might grow up with self esteem issues, right? This could affect them. It could cause depression, anxiety, failure to thrive, hyperactivity, aggression, development delays, and low self-esteem in kids as well, right? Sometimes kids even end up using substances to distract themselves, to feel like they're enough, to give them that support that they're looking for. Right now, when you don't give them emotional support, they tend to toxic things that are going to feel like supportive temporarily, which could actually be causing more harm to the kid than good as well, right? We also see kids withdrawing from friends and activities, being very inactive in school, silent and by themselves, which is also a symptom of them being neglected emotionally, right? And appearing uncaring and indifferent, because that is exactly what they're catching from their parents. Watching parents who do not care for them, watching parents neglect them, is going to make them feel like they do not have to care about anything in this world, right? And shunning emotional closeness or intimacy, this is something that could long term affect kids a lot as well, right? We've seen adults grow up into people who do not want to emotionally commit to people, who are scared of emotions, who are scared to confront their emotions and deal with their emotions. And this could possibly be because they were a neglected child, right? And that is why, as parents, it is important to give your child the necessary support and necessary attention when they're kids, and giving them that extra attention so they feel fulfilled and they grow up as healthy children into this society, and then ultimately grow up to be healthy adults as well, right? We do not want our kids, and let's think about them, right? They're children at the end of the day. Why do you want them dealing with depression and anxiety at such a young age, right? Now, even with hyperactivity and aggression, we see that because kids are neglected, they feel like they need to do extra to get your attention, which is why they become aggressive, which is why they become hyperactive, right? And they're constantly trying to get your attention with their energy, which could lead to long-term problems, right? Some of us feel like, I feel like, this whole workaholic culture also comes from there, because we're constantly feeling like we're not enough for society, as much as it is a consequence of the capitalistic society that we live in and this whole concept of productivity. I also feel like as children, if we are neglected and we have been continuously neglected, that could also lead to us feeling like we're not enough, right? And this could even cause developmental delays. Now, one is that it could end up with you becoming overly sensitive and overly emotional and feeling like you're not enough with a very low self esteem. Or you might become someone who sort of tends to become closed off to society and doesn't really care about anything. Needless, regardless, both situations are not healthy for any individual, which is why it is really important for us to do something about neglecting children, and as adults playing the role that we need to play as parents as well, right? Now, there are also symptoms that you would see in adulthood, because as a child, we have discussed and we've seen what possible reactions or actions could be taking place from the kid. What are the consequences? How do we identify that this child has been neglected? Now, this is also very much visible in adults as well, right? We see that adults tend to have post traumatic stress disorder, which is PTSD, right? When people have PTSD, it's possibly because as a child they were neglected. They also tend to have depression, emotional unavailability, which is something that is trending and a big deal right now, right? We see a lot of people feeling like they're not ready for relationships, they do not want to commit to anyone, and they do not want to even deal with emotions anymore. And we see a lot of people on TikTok and on social media apps, on their profiles, talking about how they were neglected as children, how their parents haven't played the role that they were supposed to play. And this has been affecting their adulthood immensely. So it really matters that, when you are children, when they are children, that we're taking the necessary action to take care of them, give them the guidance, give them that emotional attention, being there for them, and giving them that support that they need to grow up to be healthy adults who are ready to make that commitment to a family as well, right? Now, also want to keep in mind that, you do not have to start a family if you do not want to start a family, but it should be for the right reasons. Because you do not want to do it, not because, as a child you were neglected, not because as, a child you have PTSD and that is why now you are not ready to do that, right? If at all, we need to look at it from a positive perspective, which is ultimately you grew up to be an adult that had to face childhood negligence, and now you are going to grow into an adult that is going to parent children and make sure your child isn't neglected. So let's make the change from here onwards. We're not in control of the past, right? We're not in control of what has happened before, but we're very much in control of what is to happen in the future. So let's take all the actions that need to be taken to make sure that our children, our future generations, are not going to be facing the same problems that we have been facing as children, right? Let's make sure that we are taking action to love them, to make them feel loved and be there for them, right? Another sign of childhood negligence in adulthood is shunning intimacy, which is also part of, being emotionally unavailable, increasing likelihood for an eating disorder, feeling deeply personally flawed, which is something we see very commonly in society as of now. We see a lot of people sort of closing up and, sort of being by themselves, not being open to people and wanting to be by themselves and not be involved with anyone, and becoming so conscious about who they are, how they look, how they are presented out to the world, how they talk to people, which is kind of really sad to see. People are not confident in who they are anymore. And this could possibly be because you were neglected as a child. You can also possibly feel empty inside, and there's also poor self-discipline, right? Feeling like you want to do whatever you want to do because as a kid you were not trained and disciplined to, do the things that you're supposed to do the way you're supposed to do it, right? Which is making you someone grow up to be a person with poor self-discipline as well, right? You're also possibly someone with a lot of guilt and shame, feeling like you are at blame for everything that is happening around you, constantly blaming yourself, constantly making yourself the person who is at fault for everything that is happening around you, even though you do not have the slightest connection to the problem. Could also be because you faced childhood negligence rather, right? And this is very unhealthy for you. This is not healthy for you. And we need to do something about it, right? Anger and aggressive behavior is also a possible sign in adulthood. And this is also something that you could possibly be facing if you face childhood negligence. Lastly, we also have difficulty trusting others and relying on others because as kids, we were not able to rely and trust our parents, right? Rely on our parents, and they were not there for us when we were supposed to have them for our support, right? And this could make us grow up into adults who still haven't gotten over our childhood negligence, right? So we need to make sure that we are taking necessary actions to fix this. So let us talk about what the treatment for the effects of childhood negligence is right after this short break.
Climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
You're talking about mental health. Well, if you went out and got some exercise in the fresh air, that would improve your mental health. It will make you feel better.
That's true. That is true. I wholeheartedly agree. But then for some people, it's how do you find the motivation to, especially when it comes to riding a bicycle, to do it again and again and again and again? It's a cycle that you have to be used to. How do you do it? What makes you wake up in the morning and decide, hey, I'm going to pick my bike up today. I'm going to cycle. What makes you want to do that?
What makes me want to do that?
Yeah. What do you like? What could you give listeners, like people listening in right now? What kind of tip could you give them?
Well, the first tip I would give them, if you haven't tried it before, try it. It can open up new horizons. It'll make you fitter. It will definitely make you fitter. Cycling is one of the best forms of aerobic exercise you can do.
It sounds like, I mean, if you think about it, yeah, it sounds like great fun. Because what essentially you're trying to say is also at the same time, when you if you look at it from this perspective, with regards to mental health, especially when you look at it with mental health, this is another way to fight it. I feel like you go outside, you meet more people, you interact with, socially, you will interact with more people, and you're keeping fit, you're making connections, you're breathing in the good and exhaling the bad. I feel like that's a great thing right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got a better way with words than I have, I'll tell you. But you're quite right. What you say there. You're quite right.
I mean, I've been doing this for quite some time. I mean, hey, you'll get the hang of it.
I've been doing it for about 10 minutes now, so yeah.
That I can never really understand people staying in one room the whole day when you can have the world to see. I am a traveler. I travel. I love traveling. Traveling is just one of the things I do. And yeah, on top of my bucket list was, to one time, hopefully when I get there, go to Nepal and climb Mount Everest. That is that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
Base camp, yeah.
At least.
Would you be able to cycle there?
Oh.
One of the easiest ways to increase your net worth is to ensure that you have higher cash flows. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to not buy things on hire purchase, not buy things over months and months because you can't afford them now, but you want it. It's kind of that delayed gratification. Rather than buy that couch, that car, that stereo, that computer, whatever item, and pay it off over 12, 24, 36 months at an interest rate, rather invest that money, make do with what you've got, and then after 12, 24, 36 months, take the money that you've now invested and buy that good. An asset could be anything that appreciates or reduces a tax bill. So it could still be a liability, but it reduces their tax bill. And I'm not going to go into the technicalities because that's out of our remit here. However, for our use or our purpose, what we are talking for the listeners here is I would put this definition of an asset forward. An asset is anything that increases your income. Anything.
Now, there's a lot of conversation around who pays more taxes, if it is the rich or if it is the poor, right? When you are basically going out and during a day, you go to a restaurant, you have to pay taxes there. If you buy a car, you have to pay taxes there. So why is it even a conversation that, the rich pay less taxes or the poor pay more taxes? Why is it a conversation like that?
Because it's true, the rich generally pay less tax. A rich person walks into a Tesco's or a Sainsbury's, they're not going to get a different bill than another person, right? They're still going to pay the same VAT on those goods. They're still going to pay the same thing. So that's all the same. However, the differences come in if you can pay yourself from your own company, you can structure in a way that you pay less income tax through paying a bit of salary, paying dividends and so forth, and then also deferring income. Also, your pension payments or contributions can be different. So that increases your tax sort of gap, if that, if you want to use it that way. Where a PAYE person just gets paid salary and bonus. And now those are the most highly taxed sources of income in the UK, definitely, in the UK.
Social Roundup with Sala on Relax Radio. We've been talking about the neglected family unit, and what needs to be done about it is what we are going to be discussing next, right? So if you want to engage with us in this conversation, do feel free to comment on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, and do engage with us. Download our app now on Apple or Android as well. We're here to finally engage in conversation with you, talk about how your day is, talk about your experiences with the topics that we will be discussing here, right? And we give you topics from travel to self help to entertainment to gossip to business to tech to even social issues and crime, right? We have more topics in line. We are constantly here with you 24/7 discussing these topics, and we want you to engage with us. So do comment and do engage with us, right? Now, we were talking about what the signs of childhood neglect is in children and also in adults. Now, we're going to be sort of looking into what treatment could be given to the effects of childhood neglect as well, right? Number one is therapy, right? We need to consider therapy if we are facing some sort of child negligence. And this could be as a child. If you feel like a child in your classroom or, a child in the school, in your vicinity, in your neighborhood, your family, extended family, whatever it may be, if you feel like a child is being neglected, the first thing you should consider is therapy, right? Now, sometimes this may be the case when you're an adult, right? You're realizing it late, you're too late, you might feel like you're too late, but look, there is hope. There is hope for anyone out here, right? So do consider therapy. Now, I know there's a lot of stigma against therapy. People feel like, you are not mentally fit, that it might be that you have a psychological condition. Now, why is it the case that we think of therapy and having sort of like our mental health not being in the right place? We don't see it as similar to how we see our physical health, right? Now, if we were to break a leg, we would go to the hospital, we would get it treated, we would do whatever is necessary to make sure our leg is fine and functioning again. But why isn't it the case when it comes to our mental health, right? So it is really important to keep that in mind and consider therapy if we are supposed to be, if we have been facing childhood negligence as a kid, right? This therapy is going to help us, a psychologist or a therapist could help us to deal with our emotions, cope with them in a much more healthy way, right? And if we have been suppressing these emotions, we might not recognize and understand our emotions and know what to do about them, right? Which is exactly why therapy is supposed to be good for us, right? And they will help us, and they will help us not only to cope with our emotions, but to identify, accept, and express our emotions in a healthy manner, in a manner that doesn't harm us, in a manner that is supposed to, sort of make sure that as adults, we are going to be in control of our life. Now, this is definitely therapy on an individual scale. This could be just for a single child or for a single individual out there, an adult who is looking for therapy, right? But on the other hand, if you want to fix a situation with your family, family therapy is definitely a solution to this, right? Going for family therapy can build a better relationship between parents and children, right? A therapist can help the parents understand the impact they're having on their kids, right? They can also help a child learn to cope with their emotions and also help in modifying and correcting while intervening in parenting the kid, right? This could help, and I definitely would recommend family therapy for a family that is looking to fix a situation. Now, again, this isn't the case with every family, because sometimes you have families that are not open to the idea of therapy. And as much as it is encouraged and you should push for it, you should do whatever is in your power to, fix a situation at home. It is also important to understand that that isn't the case at every place, every home, right? So even though this may not be in your control, even going for single individual therapy could help in so many ways to better yourself, right? And it's not just dealing with emotions by yourself, but also how you interact with people, what are the emotions you're feeling with people, how are you interacting with people, how are you dealing with emotions with people in general. It's going to better your friendships, your relationships, any form of interaction with humans is going to be better, because you are going to deal with handling it in a better way. Because when you grow up in a family, in a healthy family, you learn how to interact with people through the interaction you have with your parents, right? So it is important for us to make sure that we're learning to interact with people in a healthy way if we haven't been given that as kids, right? So definitely going for individual therapy is also amazing. Now, if you are a parent and you have been neglecting your child and you are guilty of this, look, I know for a fact that it's not easy to get parents on board, but if you do see a child neglected, do try to talk to their parents. Tell them, this is not good, this is not healthy for the kid, right? And this could actually help, because parents would go to parenting classes, which have proved to be something that has helped parents develop their relationship with their kids as well, right? These courses could help parents and caregivers learn the skills necessary to recognize, listen to, and respond to children's emotions as well, right? So it is important for us to do whatever is in our control, and whoever is listening to us, willing to listen to us when addressing this problem, we need to make sure that we're doing that, right? Sometimes you might be a teenager with a sibling who is much younger to you, right? And you were a neglected child growing up, and you do not want your sibling to feel the same way, then go ahead, have a conversation with your parents and say, sit down and have a conversation with them, and tell them, look, this wasn't the case with me and both of you, right? But I don't want that to be the case with with my sibling or with your second child, right? And so I think it's time of you take parenting skills, going for parenting classes, right? I mean, let's take a look at Manny from Modern Family. If you haven't watched Modern Family, definitely watch Modern Family. There's so much that I've learned about family from Modern Family, right? What you need to do to maintain a family, how to show love, how to express love and accept people who are different into your family, who you're not used to or accustomed to, and also, understanding the concept of a modern family, because we need to change with time and the traditional family unit is no more, right? So we need to do whatever it takes to sort of change with that time, right? And we do have a comment that says, love your content. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your comment and your feedback here on Relaxed Radio. Therapy is a very important thing that often gets ignored. PSJ Nation, thank you so much for your comment. And it is definitely, that is very true. Therapy is something that is constantly ignored by societies. It is something that is not considered as an option even to healing, because what we say is we sort of take situations like this and kind of sweep it under the carpet. We think, okay, you know what, that's it, let's just leave it, we're not going to deal with this problem as a problem, which can be really unhealthy, right? So like I was saying, on Modern Family, you can definitely watch it as well. Manny, who is a child who was raised by a single mother and then later onwards has a father in the picture as well, right, a stepdad, and he tells the father and the mother that they didn't do a good job parenting him and he had to raise himself, right? So he makes sure that his parents take parenting classes to raise his second sibling. Now, this is also something that you could definitely do, right? You are going to make sure that this ends with you, and that you are going to address this problem within yourself and also in your outer circle, within your circle as well, right? So going and receiving parenting training, parenting classes is definitely that something that could help, right? But what can cause neglecting a child is also something that we need to talk about, something that we deal with, right? Because this is something that we feel like we do not understand, because we do not know what the causes for child negligence is, and because of that we tend to not understand that it is childhood negligence, right? Adults who neglect their children may be experiencing depression, substance misuse as well, right? Substance misuse, sometimes you have alcoholic parents who may be coming home and neglecting their child. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to mean that you are physically, harming your child. Simply not even giving your child attention, not even making sure your child is eating their 3 meals and taking care of themselves, going to school, is also showing that you are putting your child through negligence, right? Depression, mental health disorders that you might be facing can also be a sign of you neglecting your child. Anger and resentment towards a child, which may be making the child frustrated, feeling like they're not enough, right? Which is making them feel neglected. A personal lack of emotional fulfillment. As an adult, you may be feeling like, you are not fulfilled and you are taking it out on your child, which is very unhealthy, right? So we need to make sure that we as adults, oh, I'm not still parenting, but when I hope to be a parent, I hope to keep this in mind as well, right? So as adults, if we're deciding to parent and we're hoping to have children, we need to make sure that we are taking whatever it takes to take care of ourselves, because only when we take care of ourselves can we take care of our kids as well, right? So personal lack of emotional fulfillment can also be a reason as to why we are taking it out on our children, right? And it could also be a history of neglect from your parents as well, right? Simply because you were neglected by your parents and you didn't learn parenting from good parents, you might be taking it out on your child, might be reflecting the same way on your child as well, right? So you need to make sure that you need to stop the cycle from there, make the change from there, right? A lack of healthy parenting skills could also be a reason as to why you are sort of not neglecting your child as well, right? So we need to make sure as parents we are doing whatever it takes to take care of our children and not neglect our children, right? So we will be going on to next discussing how childhood emotional neglect can be diagnosed, right? How there are different ways in which you can sort of fix this situation and address this problem, and how we can make a change here onwards, right? With that being said, we're going to go into a small break. This is Sala on the Social Roundup with you.
One of the easiest ways to increase your net worth is to ensure that you have higher cash flows. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to not buy things on hire purchase, not buy things over months and months because you can't afford them now, but you want it. It's kind of that delayed gratification. Rather than buy that couch, that car, that stereo, that computer, whatever item, and pay it off over 12, 24, 36 months at an interest rate, rather invest that money, make do with what you've got, and then after 12, 24, 36 months, take the money that you've now invested and buy that good. An asset could be anything that appreciates or reduces a tax bill. So it could still be a liability, but it reduces their tax bill. And I'm not going to go into the technicalities because that's out of our remit here. However, for our use or our purpose, what we are talking for the listeners here is I would put this definition of an asset forward. An asset is anything that increases your income. Anything.
Now, there's a lot of conversation around who pays more taxes, if it is the rich or if it is the poor, right? When you are basically going out and during a day, you go to a restaurant, you have to pay taxes there. If you buy a car, you have to pay taxes there. So why is it even a conversation that, the rich pay less taxes or the poor pay more taxes? Why is it a conversation like that?
Because it's true, the rich generally pay less tax. A rich person walks into a Tesco's or a Sainsbury's, they're not going to get a different bill than another person, right? They're still going to pay the same VAT on those goods. They're still going to pay the same thing. So that's all the same. However, the differences come in if you can pay yourself from your own company, you can structure it in a way that you pay less income tax through paying a bit of salary, paying dividends, and so forth, and then also deferring income. Also, your pension payments or contributions can be different. So that increases your tax sort of gap, if you want to use it that way. Where a PAYE person just gets paid salary and bonus. And now those are the most highly taxed sources of income in the UK, definitely, in the UK.
climb Mount Everest. That's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
They're talking about mental health. Well, if you went out and got some exercise in the fresh air, that will improve your mental health. It will make you feel better.
That's true. That is true. I wholeheartedly agree. But then for some people, it's how do you find the motivation to, especially when it comes to riding a bicycle, to do it again and again and again and again? It's a cycle that you have to be used to. How do you do it? What makes you wake up in the morning and decide, hey, I'm going to pick my bike up today. I'm going to cycle. What makes you want to do that?
What makes me want to do that?
Yeah. What do you like? What could you give listeners, like people listening in right now? What kind of tip could you give them?
Well, the first tip I would give them, if you haven't tried it before, try it. It can open up new horizons. It will make you fitter. It will definitely make you fitter. Cycling is one of the best forms of aerobic exercise you can do.
It sounds like, I mean, if you think about it, yeah, it sounds like great fun. Because what essentially you're trying to say is also at the same time, when you, if you look at it from this perspective, with regards to mental health, especially when you look at it with mental health, this is another way to fight it. I feel like you go outside, you meet more people, you interact with, socially, you'll interact with more people, and you're keeping fit, you're making connections, you're breathing in the good and exhaling the bad. I feel like that's a great thing right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got a better way with words than I have, I'll tell you. But you're quite right. What you say there. You're quite right.
I mean, I've been doing this for quite some time. I mean, hey, you'll get the hang of it.
I've been doing it for about 10 minutes now, so yeah.
That I can never really understand people staying in one room the whole day when you can have the world to see. I am a traveler. I travel. I love traveling. Traveling is just one of the things I do. And yeah, on top of my bucket list was, to one time, hopefully when I get there, go to Nepal and climb Mount Everest. That is that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
Base camp, yeah.
At least.
Would you be able to cycle there?
Oh.